something for you.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Quad Damage Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Robert, and joining me today, as usual, is Deadforge.
What's up?
And a Midnight Medium.
Howdy, howdy.
Today, we have some very special guests. We're joined by the developers of one of the most impressive boomer shooters released in the last few years. Please welcome to the show the team behind Sprawl, Maeth co-founders Carlos Lizarraga, aka Revel, and Hannah, aka Ember. Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Howdy, howdy.
Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me in the car.
Of course.
It makes for good television, good YouTubing. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So, just before we progress then, Deadforge, I know you have a little intro that you like to do, which our guests have not yet seen. So if you just want to hop away with that,
Yeah.
and we'll get started. He used to do it with a cigar.
Yeah, well.
Look. I need to go run back to the carne asada and get a beer then.
Let's get booming.
Let's get booming.
Perfect as usual.
That's our cringy intro. Yeah. You wouldn't think I'm in my 40s and I'm going, let's get booming to the camera.
Gotta keep yourself young somehow, right?
It's great.
So, for those of us that obviously do appreciate and enjoy the game Sprawl, but for those who are out there who are watching right now who may not have much exposure to the game or know the story behind how you met, how did the two of you come together to form Maeth?
Well, I feel like this is a story we could split down the middle and we can each give our perspective. And it's cool. A great one. I mean, I could rant on that for a while. Like Sprawl, that world, that
we
universe.
got time to fill.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, this is what I'm good at. So, the world and the idea behind Sprawl, like as far as like a setting and a narrative that involve the characters that are part of that game, has existed in some capacity in my mind, and since like 2016. When I initially started experimenting with building something inside of the Source engine just for fun, because Source mod, like it was always something that I felt a connection to previously to even actually trying to develop a game. But after some time of being in the music industry, I was touring a bunch. I was about to go on a really big tour in 2020, 2021, whenever the pandemic was. Honestly, those years are a blur at this point. Whenever that started, it was supposed to be a 40 city stop. Like it was in discussions, it was pretty heavily like going to move forward. And then the world crashed, and an entire industry that I belonged to, which was, performing live. And even if you weren't performing live, producing music, that all died overnight. It was gone. And, thankfully I had a pretty substantial savings, and I was still, doing well enough that I could afford to really sit there and decide, like, okay, what do I want to do for the next few months, right? Because at the time it was supposed to be a few months, not 2 years. And I decided that I wanted to revisit an idea and a world that I've been sitting on for years now, and wanted to actually create an experience that could allow people to connect with music without needing to be a part of the show. Dance music is very much a genre that relies heavily on the live atmosphere. The fact that you're in a club surrounded by people, it's very hard to contextualize music that's very energy driven without the energy. And so one of the ways that I found that I was always super successful and how I got into making music to begin with was through games, playing on the PS1, like Wipeout, for example. Which had a super crazy, faux text on the beat.
Amazing soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible, fucking incredible. And you know, I wanted to explore that relationship further. So a lot of the stuff I was playing at the time, I was really fast paced shooters, and I've been a sweat lord FPS player my entire life, just hyper competitive. Any fucking game, you know, like I you know, so naturally the kind of things that appeal to me, or did so more back then, than I want to say now is super twitchy, high octane combat, first person shooter specifically. And if I was going to play something single player, it had to be something that was at that level. And Doom Eternal had just come out, right? And I had played Dusk, and I'd played a lot of the boomer shooter stuff, and I decided that maybe the way that I make this work is I recontextualize that universe and that world and start making it a boomer shooter, right? And so I started working on Sprawl officially in the Quake engine, similar to how kind of Wrath got started around the same time, but they started a bit before I did. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I've never let that stop me. So I banged away at it. I don't know what I'm doing at all ever, but you just got to do it. And I started picking up software that I hadn't used in years and exploring, you know, a lot of concepts that I was familiar with when I was a kid. And we can get into that. That's a whole other triad, like how I even got into doing stuff for games. I started exploring that again and found that, you know, I was really enjoying that process a lot. And I started posting a lot of my, you know, work in progress videos of what I was working on in the Quake engine, that had basically Father as the narrator already, which survives to this game, the Cyborg Super Soldier with the katana and everything. This is all pre Ghost Runner, like by a year or something like that. And at that point, you know, I was posting it in the hopes that someone would please bless me with the ability to fucking write code, because I was terrible at it. I hated it. I did it because I needed to, but I was so bad. And Hannah knows it. I think yeah, I mean, how much do I tell her to do horrible decision-making process just to get the thing across the finish line?
Hey, if it works.
It works. Hey, it's held together by duct tape and glue, but we got it out.
Isn't everything?
Yeah, I mean, pretty things don't ship game.
That's true.
So at the end of the day, like I was posting on the Quake mapping forums and a few other places, just hoping that like someone would come along, and a few people reached out, and then Hannah reaches out, and she's like, I dig what you're doing. Let's chat. Let's see if there's something that we can do. And I was expecting that she'd want to write some Quake C or be a part of that. But then she pitches me on the fact that she has the beginnings of a immersive sim shooter thing in a real engine. And she's like, you should come over here and we should work on this together. And my initial reaction was like, fuck no. What do you mean? I have to learn a whole new thing. What the fuck are you? No, like I'm almost done. I already had like 5 maps and like all the weapons and everything was done in this like absolutely piece of shit like boomer shooter that I was making in the Quake engine. But it was mine and it was done, and there was music. It was tangibly going to be over the finish line in 6 to 7 months in my head. And then she pitches me in this, and I'm like, there's no way. And she's like, just try out the demo. And she sends me just like a build of this gray box room. And I remember this perfectly, like this like sphere wireframe thing floating in the middle and a platform, right? And the walls, and all this was just the bare bones movement mechanic with the worst gun that I've ever seen anyone model in my life. Like just floating in the air. And and just like, that's it. I'm like, okay, what is this? And all it was just the movement from Sprawl, the wall running, and you know, I think sliding was in there, and slide hopping, and like just the very basic. And I must have spent 2 hours in that room with no enemies, nothing, just jumping around, trying to hit the jump, like learning, and I found immediately that holy shit moment. There's so much depth to this alone that I am enjoying in the same way that like I also was like a super competitive rocket jumper, b-hop, surf, all that shit when I was younger, and that was tickling the same part of my brain, and I was like, this is awesome. And I was hook, line, and sinker, and now here we are 4 years later.
Nice. Well, thanks for giving your perspective on how things came together for you. I've got like a dozen things that I want to ask you just based on what you said then, and none of them are the questions that
Yeah.
we've got here. So I'm going to have to stick them in the back
I
of my
got you. I got you.
Who is it? Someone has said some quote, something like, "You know, a game is good when you can just spend like hours in a single room and still enjoy yourself," or something like that. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's well created if that's the case. But yeah, Hannah, how did things come from? Obviously, he's given us perspective on how you came involved in it. But this little vertical slice, I guess you want to say, how did you come about creating that?
Yeah, so I've always had side projects on the go. I mean, like the career in game development kind of happened by accident. I learned that I was good at programming computers by accident, and then I got a job working at a bank, and I decided I want to do indie stuff on the side. I'd been teaching myself Unity and Unreal, and I just always had there was always something drawing me to it. Like I never thought like, hey, like I need to do this full time. But my side projects were always that, and then it was eating up more and more of my time, and I was starting to underperform in my main job, and then I was getting contracts for the indie stuff. So I kind of accidentally ended up on that path, and it was always just playing around doing my own thing. And then I got a job in game development, like in an actual studio. I dropped a bunch of the indie contracts I was working with, and I got a job at a studio, and that never went away. I still went home and made games. But kind of opposite to what Carlos has got. Carlos has got this mind, right, where he's building big worlds and goes down all these intricate details about how everything fits together. And I have like the complete opposite. I am like a ship in a bottle kind of perfectionist, at least early on in a project. This is we can get into this a bit later about how we balance each other out in that respect. But I would just keep making these tiny little demos, like one and the other, and like most of them would never see the light of day at all. And as you can imagine, that leads someone to come up with the crazy idea of let's make an immersive sim, because that goes really well every time that anyone
Yeah.
ever tries
That's
to
the
do
easiest
that,
game
ever.
to make right there. Immersive sim.
Yeah. So I made this gray box room, and then you'll notice in the game the wall running is referred to as your Icarus implant, and that's a callback to the code name that I was working. I called it Icarus, and it was supposed to be that the wall running and stuff actually was an implant, one of many implants in the game, and all this stuff. And I got to a point where like I polished it as much as like I could without like I'm one of these people where I'm not art blind. I have a very good vision for kind of vibes and graphic design is my passion type thing, right? So like I don't have art skill. I can't draw. I can't model, but I can look at a weapon and tell you what's wrong with. Like I can be like, okay, that doesn't fit the feel. That's not correct for what we're trying to pull off right now. And let's do this. Let's make the lighting like this. And so I made this room like as good as I could with all of the gray box stuff, and I was posting it in some Discord servers and stuff like that. And I eventually went to the Quake mapping Discord because I was still playing with the idea of just doing it in the Quake engine because I code. So I was like, well, anything the Quake engine can do, I'll just make it do it. And I asked around. I was like, is anyone doing Cyberpunk in the Quake engine? And I didn't ask because I wanted to hire someone initially. I asked to see what a Cyberpunk project in the Quake engine would look like. And then someone linked me Carlos's demo. He'd uploaded a YouTube video of like a playthrough of like one of the demo levels of his Quake mod. And I just immediately went, this is what I need to do. Like we need to work together because the vibe was entirely right.
Yeah.
I didn't have the skills to pull that off in the same way that Carlos didn't have the programming skills to pull off like a big game. But the vibe was just exactly what I wanted out of it. So I cold messaged him. I cold messaged him going, hey dude, I know you've been working really hard on this project, but trust me, bro, come work on this with me instead. And honestly, like the rest is history. Like I say, like I'm a ship in a bottle kind of person. So I'll sit there and tweak values on a jump so that it gets just the right pop and just the right feel and everything like that. And but you upload a YouTube video, or you try and market it to someone. Because I remember I was part of the New Blood Discord at the time, and I was trying to get people like, oh, what do you guys think of this? What do you guys? If someone's not gonna take the time to really play it and then experience it and see where it could go from there and really extrapolate in their head, it's not going to click for them. And that's something Carlos has always been really good at. Is I'll come up with an idea. I'll just be like, hey, I've had this idea. I've implemented like a quick basic thing. Or what if I did? What if I did do this? And I'll implement the shitty version of it just in 5 minutes. And Carlos would be like, yeah. And like there's a lot of that in Sprawl development where I'll say something and Carlos will go, yes, and, or Carlos will say something, I'll go like, yes, and I could do this as well. And it's come so naturally. And honestly, I'm shocked that he's the first person I ever messaged to collaborate in the way that I did. And how often do two people on Discord on the other sides of the planet, right, we go, hey, let's make a video game together, and on the first attempt ship something like that.
Yeah.
And it was 2 or 3 years total like time. And it was an awesome find. And it was the universe pointing us in the right direction, because like we've never had disagreements about the direction the game should go or whatever.
Yeah.
It's at no point has there been a creative difference. There's always been like little things where it's like, what if we do this? No, what if we do this? But like at the end of the day, I'll work like a week on like a new ability or something like that, and I'll put time and effort into it, and then it'll be like, okay, cool, let's get the weapons in that work with this and do all this, and then we'll get there, and Carlos will be like, I don't think this is working. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so either. And it's like there's never that kind of like, hey, I've put a lot of effort into this, and like we've got very clear on that direction. So I don't know. There's something in the universe that kind of led to that meeting. I never saw his work in the Quake Discord. I never interacted in the Quake Discord. I asked one question: hey, is anyone doing Cyberpunk in the Quake engine? And one guy responded, hey, check this guy out. And
I guess some of the best things just kind of come together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
With that,
I know that from experience.
Yeah. What was like maybe one or more of the biggest hurdles that you guys had to kind of get over during development for either of you? If there were any.
I think just for me it was learning Unreal. I opened Unreal for the first time, and that's what we made. Like that's what I made. Like it was not tripping over yourself, figuring how things worked, and then sometimes what ended up happening is that because you didn't understand fully how some feature of the engine actually functioned, you lost time cleaning up that could have been spent doing more content, or something along the line of that.
Right.
That was a big hurdle, but then another one was also just getting it over the line. Obviously, that's really tough. That's a very difficult thing to do, and that does, that exists everywhere. Anything that's a creative venture, anything where you have to actually put something out to the world. Yeah. Obviously, games are massive monoliths that have a lot of interconnected systems and things that need to play well with each other in order for you to actually ship the game at the same scale that maybe shipping an album isn't that complex, right? They can be at very high levels with big pop artists, but for the most part, like being tough with yourself and making some hard choices is difficult. It's really difficult, and I think it's really commendable that Hannah was able to pull that off. And that's definitely, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that I think everyone who's making a game or anything creative is that you are your worst critic. Tell yourself to shut the fuck up and put the thing out there. You're not going to do anything.
Yeah, you're always your worst critic. You're always your worst enemy when you're creating anything, whether it's like YouTube videos or video games or whatever it may be. You're writing a book or something. You just got to, at a certain point, you just got to be like, all right, I'm going to release this thing, or, I'm going to finish it, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I mean, I think my time in music was the number one thing that has built the the infrastructure like in my head that allows me to get things done, right? Because I've already experienced all that. I went through it already for 15 years. I've seen what happens to people that aren't able to tell their little voice in their head to shut the fuck up and just put something out. And I've seen the end result of projects that are just meticulous and like, you know, are consistent about what they're doing and their output, and the quality of their output may fluctuate from time to time, but overall you're building a fan base little by little.
Yeah.
I mean, and me and Hannah have been very clear from day one, like, this is not our Doom, this is not our Quake, this is our fucking Commander Keen.
Yeah.
And like, here's a deep cut. This is our knob. I don't know if you know what Bungie first did. They made a Pong clone. A fucking Pong clone. That was the first thing they did. Alex Karopian in 1992 or 87 or some shit like that. Like, that's what Sprawl is to us. We love this game, and we're going to be doing more stuff in the future. But this is just the beginning for us, right?
Yeah.
So with that perspective in mind, you're able to really get yourself over the finish line, which again, just to circle back, is I think the most difficult part of the process.
It's important to when you're doing something for as long as game development. I think it's not only important to surround yourself with people that are lifting you up and telling you what you're doing right, but surrounding yourself with people that have the confidence to tell you when you're doing something wrong as well, because that's the only way that you're really going to improve yourself. Deadforge, what were you about to say then?
I was going to say that, you know, because you were able to, you know, get through that hurdle of learning Unreal, now that when you go on to create the next game, you are going to know Unreal a lot better, and it's going to be a lot easier, a lot faster, and you can implement a lot more. Yeah.
That was,
we're already feeling that.
That was going to be my answer. Actually, was the fact that Sprawl was actually our first game. I had some AAA experience. I'd never gone through the cycle of shipping a game, and when you work in AAA, you learn a lot of valuable stuff. Obviously, that you just wouldn't learn at the same pace. But you're not exposed to the same things either. Like you're not quite pigeonholed in the way that people imagine. Like you're working on this character for whatever. Like on a lot of teams,
a lot more spread out.
You spread out, but like you're a gameplay coder and you code gameplay. What is your purpose? You code gameplay. So why is the game not showing this texture whenever I package it? I don't know. I'm not a packaging engineer. I've never done that before. So I had a lot to learn in that regard. Carlos had to learn the engine, and some of the things that you wouldn't expect are kind of the external factors too, and you know, scheduling and burnout and things like that. Like it is when you take something like a hobby, what I did with Sprawl, where it was a side project, because something not a lot of people know is that Carlos quit his job. Carlos went full time on Sprawl as soon as we took the opportunity, and I didn't. I kept this as like a side thing for a while, and that was one of the hardest obstacles to overcome that you don't expect when you turn something like a hobby into that. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned a great deal from is what to expect. You know, there was a at the time I was working for a studio that got acquired by Sony, and there was contract issues. It seems so minor in the grand scheme of like, oh, now you're working for PlayStation. Like, why do they care about your little indie game? But they really do. And now your day job is you arguing for your right to do your moonlighting thing. And then by the time you get there, you're tired and everything like that. So just a million little things like that now that we know that we didn't know before. Going into stuff now, like my current position, it's just a no-brainer. That's in the contract. Like, I can do what I want as long as it's not in direct competition. We're making sure that we schedule something that we've done this time that we didn't have to do last time is we've just set working days now. Believe it or not, Sprawl was done without a schedule for us to interact.
Chaos.
We just were on chaos. We were on every evening.
Hey, that's how shit gets done. You need to be fast. You need to be loose. The more you try to fucking put everything into this perfect box, the you don't give it room to breathe and kind of grow. You know, like you're gonna suffocate the damn thing, especially when it's your first go at it. And that's something I learned the hard way with a lot of different projects, not game related, that you just gotta roll with the punches. So that chaos was great for us for the first go around, and we can see that time and time again with the development process of all of our favorite games or all our favorite studios when they did their first one. You know, it's fucking chaos, but that's important, and that's how you get it done. But now
it was like game jam. It was a 3-year game jam, is what it felt like. Like genuinely. And we never would have figured out how to work with each other as well. See, if we decided we were going to make a game together, okay, let's found a studio, let's get funding, and then make this our 9 to 5. Like, would we have discovered how to work with each other the same way? Would we have gotten fed up with each other immediately? Now, me and Carlos can know, you know, the how to interact and the way that we'd like to work with each other. But I think that what really the timing was a blessing, right? Because we started this right as COVID hit. Like, this was Carlos was really getting his head down into the demo because the music industry was falling apart and had a lot of free time. Like, I didn't get out much before COVID, even before I had this side project and all this stuff. And then COVID happened and I didn't get out even more. So we were just stuck in our rooms doing this, and that was our only option. Like, we hopped on. It's like, hey, do you want to go out for drinks? You want to go to the club? I can't. Let's make some fucking money. You know, let's go make a game and make something of it. Like, make something of this time, make it worthwhile. And I think that's the kind of sad thing about it is that, you know, it's not even sad. It's kind of beautiful in some ways that something like COVID can turn the balance of something like this actually being able to be pulled off, because there would be no way in how, like, how often do you get two people just on Discord going, hey, let's make a game, and it just works out.
I totally agree with you. Both my partner and I were made redundant on the same day during COVID, and now we're both self-employed. She's running it, and we were like, how do we pay the rent next month? And because I'd been running Hyperforce Gaming for a while, it was like, so why don't we use the skills that we already have, go self-employed, and then just white label them out to people? And here you are several years later, and it's like, you know what? Everything worked out perfectly fine, and I wouldn't have wanted to work out any other way because it brought me to where I am today. But the question that I wanted to ask earlier was in regards to your publisher. How did your publisher come into the scene?
I've been asked this question a couple times concerning even like why you would even go with a publisher. But I mean, from day one, I was very clear that like we like. I told Hannah, I sold her the vision. It's like, we're going to work on this thing for 6 months and we're going to get a publisher. I speak in absolutes, you know, like it's I'm a fucking Sith or whatever the fuck dumb code is. But
what was it I said about you? Like,
you sound like a bullshit. Yeah. This is a great fucking quote that Hannah says. Like, you talk like a bullshit artist, but everything you say is true, and it always happens. Like I don't know, like it's like a mind. I've heard this before.
It sounds wonderful. Like to have a codev that is like that talks shit and is always right. It sounds wonderful. It's the most annoying thing on the fucking planet. Because it's like, oh yeah, there's the meme. He's always right. No, I am always right. It is fucking. It's hard being him. It's hard being him. I swear.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right?
Man.
It's not arrogance, it's confidence.
Yeah. No, all jokes aside, I mean, like, I just believe that if you believe it, if you say it, and this isn't spooky voodoo magic, whatever, like, oh, the power manifestation. No, if you just act like it's happening, then you're going to do everything that needs to happen for it to happen. Yeah. Right. And most things, and I know this from experience because I have done shit that makes no sense for someone to be able to pull off. Like I went on tour when I was 17. I've been wildly successful in a bunch of different things, and like people have asked me how, and it's like, you just do the thing. You just do the thing and believe it's going to work, and most of the time it does work. You know, because like it's not that hard. I don't know.
Well, it's believing in yourself, isn't it? You get up in the morning and you're like, this is what I want to do. And instead of sitting there thinking, oh, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. You go out and you
it's not even like self-belief. It's just like if you love what you're doing, if you want it, then it's like you're going to do everything that needs to happen in order for it to happen. Like before we go off on that tangent, what I was going to get was that, you know, I was very clear with Hannah. I was like, we're going to do this thing for 6 months and then we're going to get a publisher. And then she was like, okay, that sounds great. And didn't believe that was going to happen. But then I was like, no, trust me. Like, we're going to market this thing like I market music projects. We're going to build audience on Twitter. We're going to that's how we're going to reach our organic level of growth. And people are going to reach out to us. Right. And ultimately we did reach out to publishers. Obviously the big ones, the ones that like were in the scene that were really interesting. I mean, like the New Bloods and the Three Realms and everything. And like we had conversations. Oshri was very clear from day one that he's like, yeah, we're not publishing games anymore, but here's my boy who is, or like he's, like it was very much like that. So we had a lot of conversations and we had a lot of publishers reach out to us, and we were offered some, I mean, frankly, great deals across the board, pretty unilaterally. But I think at the 11th hour, right before we were going to sign with someone else, or we're entertaining the conversation to sign with someone else, we ended up getting a message from Scott Prather, who was at Rogue at the time, being like, hey, I'd love to chat with you, and see what we can do about this game. And then, we go on the website and they didn't have anything in the market like that yet. Most of their stuff was indie. And so Hannah was like, no, it was like, it's like, why should we even entertain it? It's like, because you entertain
it. All mobile.
Right? And then
it was all just like old mobile stuff and like stuff that was nowhere in our realm of existence. But they seemed so passionate.
But then I went on the team, you click the team, and it's like Reggie Fils-Aimé, and then the fucking dude from Sony, and then like Matt Casamassina, who like founded IGN, and like all these like rock stars that have no reason to be doing this anymore. They could have fucked off and retired. Matt was at Apple for 10 years. I think his vested stock options alone, he's good. Like, why is he doing this? So I wagered in my head, it's like, okay, if I was at that level of success and I was doing this again, because it's not something easy, it's a risk. I'm doing it because I love it. And if I love it, that rationally means that I'm going to put everything I can to make it work. Right. And I'm going to treat the people around me well. And that's how I pitched it to Hannah, and they offered us a deal, and it was a great deal. We negotiated around it, and we got something out of it that we felt was really fair and was really great for us. And the team, after we met them, they were all very passionate. They were great people. People that my litmus test is like, can I go out and have a beer with you and not want to shoot myself? Because there's a lot of people that you'll meet, especially in business, if you're making something creative. Like the way that I tell it to people, it's like, I've been in the business of being exploited creatively my entire life, since I was 16. So I've met all the people that, the middlemen that like make the connections happen, that fund your projects, whatever. And like most of the time they're miserable to be around. It's like the worst of the dregs of humanity, but you have to entertain them because you need to make a living, right? Whereas the whole team behind Rogue, and most of the people that I love in my life that I've met through either games or music or any of the things that I've done, I've always felt that best judge of characters, like, can I go out and have a beer with you and like have a normal human conversation? That's something I want to participate in. And with all of them, it was great. It was great. It was a great connection. It was a great feeling. And then me and Hannah discussed it after, and we're like, I think these are our people, And so at the end of the day, we ended up choosing people that felt right versus the best deal on the table, right, for the most amount of money. And they've been a great partner to us so far, and we've really enjoyed working with them. And, we're going to continue working with them on things we can't talk about yet, but we're really excited that, that we get this opportunity, right? So at the end of the day, I think that's something that I always tell people is like, if you're going to go with the publisher, go with one that you're either doing it for the money and they're going to give you a ton of it and you're just gonna have to put up with shit, or you're going with people that are going to actually help you and that you think are good people,
And this is a slightly different take on the answer to that question, in case kind of the framing was more so, how do you go about getting a publisher as an indie dev? Because we've been through that process, and I think the number one thing is to keep in mind what Carlos said at the start. Is it sounds like arrogance with the just act like it'll work. Obviously, there's risk involved, but genuinely, what happened is that we decided we were doing this, and he got his head down, and we both just cranked out a demo. And the way we worked it out is it's not like it wasn't like a vertical slice or like here's our concept of the game. it was like a vertical slice. It wasn't like a concept thing. It wasn't like here's a great box or whatever. We, to the best of our abilities for what the game was at the time, made the first level, and then we zipped it up and we just started spamming emails. Like we uploaded a YouTube video. We uploaded a YouTube video. First 15 minutes of Sprawl. I'm not sure if it's still live. If you first 15 minutes of gameplay, whatever. Looks nothing like the actual gameplay of Sprawl, but a lot of it's there, but it's not all there.
Yeah. And, IGN puts a video of the first 15 minutes up, right? Is that the same? Is that the same
first 14
minutes? That might have been. I think we got another one. We did another one with the actual game later on, but we had like just our own video that was straight up just like here's our game announcement, and it was acting as if we already had a publisher. Like we didn't say we had a publisher and all that stuff. It was just doing the whole game announcement. The world knows it's the game. When usually what happens is you go to a publisher with a pitch. You don't announce the game yet unless you're building the social media presence. We didn't. We launched the socials. Right? We said nothing about Sprawl. We didn't have a Twitter account. We didn't do nothing until we had the 15-minute demo, and we burst out on it going, here's our game, and it looks awesome.
Sometimes
it was that kind of like, hey, the game's coming. And that's what we said. The game is coming. It's happening. It's just we're sorting out the details. And then we took that video, we uploaded it, and then we started building our audience. And then we took that build, and that's a ballsy move, is to not, you don't come with a pitch. You don't organize a meeting for a pitch. You send zip files with your build and go, here's my game. Would you like to publish it? And that is probably your best bet. That is because what happened is we got a lot of responses, and a lot of them didn't work out just for various reasons. But then because the zip file was there, I'm pretty sure what happened with Scott is I think he heard about it from a friend, or like got put in contact because they had played it at a publisher. But he saw it on Twitter. We had an interaction with one of the publishers, where essentially what happened is that someone had played it at a publisher, thought it was really cool, but they weren't looking for something like that at the time, and they messaged one of their friends who was at a different publisher, going, "Hey, you should look at this." And that it was basically at that point you allow your pitch to go viral. No one's sharing pitch documents between publishers, but people are going, "Look at this," you know. That's my big recommendation: is don't pitch a game idea.
Yeah,
pitch something that you can play,
tangible. Something you got an example of something. You already got like something they can see or they can touch. Something. It's already halfway created. Or
which is great for that, though.
It's especially if you don't have like the pedigree behind you already. If you haven't done a game before, especially so, you need to have something tangible, or else people are going to think you're full of shit. Especially right now, where the money isn't free anymore. It's 5% interest rates. No one's giving it away. You got to fight for that. And the way we treated it, like Hannah, like it's a great point. It's like we built it like a music project. Like a lot of the tradition of how you did things, I immediately saw, and like, this is not going to fucking work. Like this is not what we're going to do. We're going to do things differently. We're going to already come out the gate swinging. And that's naturally going to attract, build it and they will come. Right. Like,
do you think that worked in favor for the reception? Like reception of the game and everything? That approach?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I think that the way that you have to market games has changed dramatically. 100%. Like you cannot do what they did before and like, I'm going to put a fucking article on IGN and like, that's it. And like, no, that's like, I got to see the analytics behind it, and I remember telling people this, and they're like, "Oh no, you get to be a part of this conference or this thing," and I was like, "Dude, like that's gonna do shit for us. I'm gonna get more on a Reddit post. Watch." And everyone was like, "There's no way." And then I get to show them the data. I'm like, "Guess what? That's actually what works."
Nowadays it's all about socials, all about that.
Yeah, we got covered by some big outlets, and we can see the Steam bumps as it happens. And I swear to God, when I say the biggest bump we ever got in sales, other than when we put it on for like crazy sales, the biggest bump we ever got from a promotional thing was me posting on Reddit by myself going, "Hey, Sprawl works on the Steam Deck." That's sold so many copies.
Oh, I bet.
Wish list. We got 25,000 wish list off of that one post. I remember.
Wow.
I held a GoPro in my mouth. And I played the game for 30 seconds, and I uploaded it going, "Oh, Sprawl works great." I got a message from the Steam Deck moderators going like, "Hey, would you like to host a key giveaway?" That whole thing was like the single biggest. It's organic reach. It's organic reach talking to real people, not engaging in the.
So please continue.
I was just saying, not engaging necessarily with the traditional industry, because that's not you, but at least not yet.
Yeah.
I was going to say that half of the games that I have my wish list I've never heard of before, and they popped up on Twitter, and I was and that was my first exposure to it. The last one that really caught my eye was Painted in Blood, where I watched that trailer for, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in a row, and I was like, I have to have that when it comes out. And you've never heard of these things before.
Yeah.
The good thing about organic is that people trust the word of mouth, so that if I'm sharing it to Deadforge, for example, he knows that it's going to be something for his tastes. And because everyone on socials kind of surrounds themselves with like-minded people, it spreads very fast. And I think that our social promotion is, at this point in our society, perhaps, I mean, you've just given a very positive example of it, a lot more important than going through the traditional ways of doing things. But I do have a question about your Quake update afterwards. If any of the guys want to ask any questions first.
This may actually ramp into your question. I was just curious, since y'all kind of met under the pretense of like, hey, that looks cool, I think we work together, but when you come do this over here, was there ever like a re-engrafting of the Quake engine build from before? Or was it more like hop onto my thing and kind of bring your world with you type of deal? Or was there a way you actually got to tacitly like bring back the gameplay you had in that demo to the final Sprawl?
No, I mean the final Sprawl is a completely different beast. I mean the original Sprawl didn't have any of the movement mechanics of the final Sprawl. There was no wall running. There was none of that. The only thing I had was a shotgun jump, because I'm an obsessive rocket jumper and I wanted something like that. Yeah, like I love that shit. I love really in-depth movement mechanics, like hopping strafe, like I will break every game. I'm like that guy on Apex that just like, oh god, he's just fucking hopping around everywhere. Look at the sweat, that's so engaging for me. So that's the one thing that transferred over. The general idea of it being a boomer shooter with like the boomer shooter layout of like the classic id weapon, shotgun spread, and like to the grenade launcher, to the rocket launcher, like that whole kind of lineup was from the Quake build. Some of our enemy characters are from that Quake build, with just like a little bit of spit polish on top of them. Our grunts are still the same ones. They just had a different helmet on, like a few other things like that. Some textures survive and they're still palletized to the Quake palette. Some sound effects survived from that build to the final game. But besides that, it was just like the idea and the feel, the general vibe, the big picture, which is what I'm really great at, is the big picture. Like that's what got transferred over. The tiny little details don't matter too much to me, So that's how we approached it. Basically, it was like, we're not making what I'm making. Like it became a new thing, It was what Hannah was making was not what I was making. Like they came together and created something that was somewhere in between both, where she got to build what she wanted to build and I got to build what I wanted to build, because at the end of the day, I wasn't too concerned about gameplay. I was concerned about the feeling of the world and how it sounded. And like that's how I think. And like, I don't give two shits about like how fast the player runs, like great, I guess. I just wanted to be fast, kinetic. Like the overall feeling of the game needs to be there, but the way that something feels can be completely the same, despite the fact that it's presented differently. Like it's like there are multiple kinds of sad chords you can play, but they're all sad, right? Yeah, it's the same thing with a game if you think about it in a big picture like that.
Yeah, it was never a case of like come hop on my thing. That was very much how I presented it, but it was more so as a come make a game with me. Here's what I've got. Yeah. And immediately, as soon as we started working together, it was a case of what I brought up earlier, where there were no creative differences really. It was he was like, I think you mentioned I don't really want to do an immersive sim, and I was like, yeah, that's probably a dumb idea anyway. Let's lean into like a more
which is what I
that kind of thing, where it immediately became a merge of what we were doing. So we both got to
yeah.
So what were the inspirations then? You said that there was no wall running. This is literally the thing that Sprawl is primarily famous for. It's movement. So did you just like look at inspirations and say, I'll take that mechanic from that game, that mechanic, and that was part of the development process?
Yeah, sort of. It's just like what feels good, what would work here. You know, I believe that there is, again, all of this is from experience. It's like anyone who tells you that they can write a pop hit is full of shit, because you can't. You really fucking can't. You can try really hard and follow kind of like set paths and like, you know, but there is no formula that gets you a hit, right? It's a feel thing. It's a feel thing, and there's and that's just for music, and in the same way that applies also to games. It's like, for us, like, yeah, like Sprawl is a very movement focused game, but at the end of the day, it's like the big picture of the game itself is the world and how it fell, right? So even if it didn't have the wall running, I think Sprawl would have been just as successful. We had a lot of actual people that didn't like the wall running, you know.
It took a while for me to get used to it. Usually you run onto a wall and you're just kind of there, but of course you factor in gravity while you're on the wall. Yeah,
a lot of people are upset it wasn't Titanfall, and we knew that was going to happen, but we wanted to do something different. And so everything that we built for that game was for the sake of completing the big picture, you know. And a lot of sacrifices were made in order to get there. Where a lot of things were just like, hey, like we got to get this thing done, and we got to make sure that it feels good and it's fun to play. But you know, maybe like sitting down and trying to build this monolithic document that you follow, that is like, this is what the game is. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. I've seen it too many times where it does not work. You need to be flexible. You need to be nimble. You need to be able to pivot, and you need to be able to change on the fly, because if you don't, you're going to get bogged down exploring an idea that isn't worth your time, you know? So yeah, it was basically about like, we have the movement mechanic. What else feels good around it? Right.
So this is often how development has gone with Sprawl, because like you see with Sprawl, the wall running was a very cool part from the get go in the Unreal build that we were doing, right? But like the world that he was building was not core to what I had in my head when I was building that. And the wall running was not core at all to his idea of what Sprawl was in the Quake engine. But when we came together, neither of those things clashed. And it was like, oh, okay, the wall running makes a lot of sense because it allows the traversal of a very vertical area. It feels really good. It makes it enjoyable to move around this space. And his world, it gave it room to kind of glow, right? And these two things were never in competition, so it made sense to keep it. What our creative process usually looks like with Sprawl, and like this is one of the reasons that I've loved working with Rogue so far. They're very easy to work with, which is a very important thing when it comes to like a publisher relation, is that the game just kind of came to us because I made the game I wanted to make, and Carlos made the game he wanted to make. And whenever I'd go, hey, what about this? He'd like, yeah, go for it. And whenever he said, like, hey, what about this? I'd go, yeah, go for it. Like do that, make that enemy. And yeah, make that mechanic. And then if at any point we played the game and went, that doesn't fit, that doesn't work, then we just trash it. And that's kind of like been the creative process from the get-go, like the Sprawl page document and what we actually made. Like, I guess the mission structure, like what we were planning, the overall story kind of stayed the same.
The big picture.
The big picture stayed the same. But like, if we had a publisher that was like holding us to, hey, you said you'd make this game, then Sprawl wouldn't be what it is now. It'd be a much worse game, you know. And that's something that we value going forward. And it's one of the reasons we love working with Rogue. It's just that ability to let the game be what it is. It's a living, breathing thing, and it's never a case of like, hey, I really wanted to do this. How can I make this happen? It's the stop trying to make fetch happen. Fetch it's not happening. It's like if you have to force it, like, and this is the thing, like if I have a mechanic and we put it in with an enemy and it doesn't work, unless the answer is immediately on the top of my head, the next thing I think is maybe we could design a better enemy so that this mechanic works. This mechanic is just not congruent with the rest of the game.
Well, the game making, of course, is as much a technical endeavor. It's a work of art as well, and art is always evolving. And if you try to put it into a box, you'll never be able to create what it is that you're doing, because you need to let those creative juices, flow and have the freedom to not be boxed up and told this is what we expect you to make. it's meant to come out naturally. But medium Deadforge, I think it's time to have our little rapid fire round segment.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Deadforge, you're up for this.
Rapid fire, yeah. 10
so this is what I mentioned
1 minute.
before. 10 questions. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if you want to answer 5 each or you want to alternate between the two of you or something. It's entirely up to you.
Let's do 5 each. 5 each. That way we can keep the juices going, you know.
All right, that works.
You got Wang.
I'll start.
Keep warm.
All right. So, what's your favorite animal?
Damn, I'm not good at this. Dogs. Yeah, dogs for sure.
Dogs, okay. And what is your favorite video game?
I don't have favorites. I can't. There's a lot of things I love. I'm being serious. No,
So if you're stuck on an island,
a video game that I very much enjoy, and that has influenced me a lot that I love to this day is Halo.
It's a good choice.
Deadforge is a big Halo fan as well.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
Do you have a preferred cooking method?
Sous vide. Yeah, 100%.
What is your favorite TV show?
I don't watch TV.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
do you have any allergies?
No, but I am lactose intolerant.
That's worse.
Yeah, that sucks.
All right, so now for Hannah. What is your favorite style of decor?
Oh, brutalist.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
nice.
Very good.
That's true.
Do you like to travel?
I didn't in the past, but yeah, recently I've been traveling a time. Was it 4 months ago?
Yeah.
So I flew out to LA. That was my first time
cool.
traveling abroad as an adult in a long time. So
I remember you posting about that on Twitter, I believe.
yeah, we made the whole game, shipped the whole game, finished most of the updates and everything before we ever met in person.
How many times have you heard the Ghost in the Shell comparison for Sprawl?
All the fucking time. That's what we're going for. Is anytime we get that, it's
a fuck yeah. We did our job, right? We did our job.
Right.
And honestly, I think the choir that Carlos has got in the soundtrack is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, you're going to be
100%. That was intentional.
If you're going to be compared to something, be compared to the best.
Yeah. If you could have any pet in the world, what would it be?
Red panda.
Nice.
You can't have those. You know, it's a good answer.
Why do you know this?
No, because I have favorite animals.
Fucking so weird. Who wants a red panda?
Because I have all the answers. There's a bunch of pets that I want, right? That I don't have.
Why do you have a bunch of pets?
You can have
researching which ones can I have.
You can have them. The fact that I can't have a red panda means that's the perfect answer to if you could have any pet in the world, what would it be?
Yeah.
This is the most Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia shit.
Oh goodness.
Have you seen that Pixar Red Panda movie? I've forgotten what it's called.
No.
I haven't.
We watched
I live under a rock.
All right, so how would you rate your culinary skills?
Oh, mine?
Zero.
Zero.
He hates that he hates that I'm British. He's never had my food. He just is. He says it. You know what it is? He's always the first to see my Instagram stories. I don't know. It doesn't matter what day it is. He always sees my Instagram stories. Always sees my posts. Never interacts with them. It's fine. Whatever. Do. Never interacts with anything. You know the only thing this asshole sends me on Instagram is British food slander. Anytime he sees a British food slander or all you got a license for that.
It's telling that you're calling it slander when all I'm sending you is videos of influencers out there that are super hyped to try this amazing fucking literally just orange chicken with fucking potatoes and gravy on top of it. I'm like, this is the most foul, disgusting shit I have ever seen in my life. It's chippies with fucking green peas. This nuclear reactor
him more than anything, Robert. He hates British Chinese food.
British Chinese food.
British Chinese food. I don't know how to explain it. Robert knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I do, yes.
I mean, American Chinese food's one thing.
Oh my God! You guys still think you're under the Blitz? It's over. You guys won. You can eat more than potatoes. They put potatoes in Chinese food. What are you? Not just potatoes, French fries. What are you doing?
It's been anglicized. Yeah, even the Chinese people. Even the Chinese people here are like, "What the fuck are you guys eating?"
Yeah,
throw potatoes in it.
But it's one of those default things that you think of, goodness. So your selection is only the Chinese places around you. If you've got a good Chinese place around you, you're set. But chances are you're absolutely plastered. It's 2 a.m. and you're like, I feel like having a Chinese right now. And you look over there and whatever they've got is what they've got. It's the same with fish and chips. Everyone in the UK kind of thinks that if it's fish, then it's battered, and that's kind of the standard thing. Whereas I'm big into grilling, cooking with fire, so I make steaks and actual fish and stuff like that. But I absolutely understand, both of your perspectives. But depending on how you're feeling, a Chinese is a damn good thing, even if it is the westernized
filled with potatoes.
Of it.
How very diplomatic of you. And that is not westernized. That is a fucking abomination. That's all I got. You're going to try to be here and be like, oh, yeah, we can sign the UN Charter and make peace on the fact that I can put gravy and potatoes on chow mein. Fuck off.
I mean, I can confirm.
That's what
I can confirm that in my area there are no potatoes and gravy on the Chinese food. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just a British thing.
I'll go to your account.
Yeah. My mother.
Sorry, go on.
My mother is Belizean, and so for her, she makes a lot of Belizean food. And every time she sees like a traditional British meal or something, she's just like looking down on it. Look at this piece of shit this person is eating. Okay, Robert, you come back here. I make you a big pot roast, and you know what a meal is. Yes, yes, Mom. So, Hannah, what were you about to say?
I was just gonna say that to answer your question, like I don't cook a lot, but the few dishes I do cook, I think I do an alright job, like solid 7 out of 10. This guy can cook though. I went to LA and he was like, "I'm cooking for you," and I was like, "We can go." I'm in LA. What do you mean you're gonna cook? Nah, this guy cooks. So.
Yeah, I love food. I genuinely love food and I love cooking.
Same here.
It's a great skill to have. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I tell you how shit I am at cooking. When I was at university, I used to be in the kitchen at 1 a.m. and I would eat dry pasta straight out of the packet. Just because you eat that. I couldn't be bothered to cook. I didn't know how to cook. I just knew that pasta is something that is edible. So Robert's there at 1 a.m. just chewing, and he used to mess my mouth up.
Brother, I know how to cook and I love food, but I eat like a fucking raccoon if I'm left alone. To this day, like a fucking absolute animal. Like I will make great food for the people that I love, like my girl and whoever happens to be there. Or like I love sharing food. I love going out for food. But if I am like working or something, it's like, all right, let's open the fridge. I'm gonna grab a cold piece of bread and I'm gonna throw it on the grill just so it gets a little charred, and I'm just gonna put it in my mouth. Like that was
nice.
Like it's disgusting, like
oh my God.
Shit. Like, oh yeah, I got some Greek yogurt and a tortilla. I'm gonna put some garlic powder on this and shove it in my mouth. Like I just need to get it done out of the way. Like I don't have time to sit there like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend an hour making this super intricate, like amazing meal. I will do that if I get to share that with someone. I will never do that to myself.
It feels pointless when you're on your own to spend so much time cooking something that's really nice. It's like if it's just me, just throw something in a bowl and I'm done. But if it's my family around, then I'm going to make the effort. I used to make what's called a bird's nest, which is literally it's a pot.
Does that not sound like the most British thing you've ever heard?
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. What the fuck, you people? people call like putting the egg inside of the bread, toad in a hole or some shit like that.
I had
like, what the fuck? What in the token is that?
That is
shit?
delectable.
You guys name everything like hobbits.
Yeah, but a bird's nest is literally it's mashed potato in a bowl, and then you take a hard boil, you take an egg, pop it in to make the little semicircle, crack it open, and then put some cheese on it. It is the most bottom basement.
You guys really do have
really
a potato
nice.
fetish, don't you? It's really a big potato thing.
I hate potatoes. I went there and he was like, "Fuck you! I'm cooking you potatoes." It was the only time I've ever asked for seconds for mashed potatoes.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I mean, there's nothing like some good homemade mashed potatoes.
It was steak, mashed potatoes, but you did like a balsamic reduction sauce. That shit was popping.
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
We had the wine.
How do you do your steak? Do you sear or reverse sear? Or how is it?
So it depends on how lazy I am or how not lazy I am. If I am just like, I just need to get it done, I'll just throw it on the pan and like call it a day. But if I really want to make like, if I have a really thick, great cut of meat that's not super fatty, then I'll sous vide it 100%. But if it's got a lot of fat that I want to render out, then I am going to reverse sear that. Just because I want it to I want to render out that fat, get a little bit of char, a little bit crisp on it. That you can get if you sear after the sous vide, but you tend to. There's a lot of intramuscular. It tends to either stay gummy and chewy versus actually melting down and rendering out and being a delicious mouthful.
Oh yeah.
It just depends on the cut and the quality of the meat, but I most of the time I end up reverse searing. Just because I'm too lazy to take out the water bath and fucking set up the thing and plug it in, and then like, all right, I'm gonna wait 2 hours, like like that. That's if I'm making a dinner party for like 10 people. All right, then I'm gonna bust out the tools and But if it's just me and my girl, or me or a friend, or like it's a couple people, and I got like 2 really big tomahawks, and I'll just throw them and I'll reverse sear.
Tomahawk is
not really
not
steaks, but
so much about food.
I need to go back into that fucking carne asada, and I'm gonna have a couple tacos with a bunch of guac, and I'll send you guys pictures so you can see how my people eat.
Yeah. But not really steaks, but I was gonna say I highly recommend cooking with Guinness for burgers.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
No.
And I did on a flat grill
I went
with with smoked garlic. And it's so good, so good.
Yeah, I make Guinness.
Sounds horrible.
So much delay.
Sorry, we all spoke at the same time and then stopped saying. Yeah,
I was saying, have you guys considered a cooking podcast?
Yeah, I think we should stop with the cook.
Stanley Tucci has a cookery show. Stanley Tucci. And like apparently he's like the sexiest cook ever. Apparently, so but I would love to do that. I went through a phase when I was younger, in my teenage years, of drinking Guinness and orange juice together. And for some reason,
that does sound disgusting. I don't know what's wrong with you. Who hurt you?
The hottest shit ever. and then just one day, I was like, "What the fuck am I drinking this shit for?"
I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, vodka and orange juice, sure.
Thing about those, the compliments each other.
I don't know if I can help you there. I don't know if I can help you with that one.
Vodka and orange juice, but not Guinness and orange juice.
Yeah,
jeez.
You know what's a surprisingly good mix? A surprisingly good mix is Coca.
That was back when Robert worked the street.
What's a surprisingly good mix is Coca-Cola and orange juice.
See?
Oh, okay.
No, that's not. I'm saying. Okay.
No. I can see that.
Oh, get the fuck out. Stop.
Or Coca-Cola.
Nice to her. Don't encourage this.
I mean, a Jack and Coke's pretty good.
If there's one thing that makes Carlos racist, it's a British person having thoughts and opinions about food.
That is not true. That is not true.
Coca-Cola after garlic is very nice as well, and the pop it gives you in your mouth. But taking the conversation back to Sprawl after we deviated so long on food.
Yeah,
it's
I don't
really
know if
nice
I can forget
to have
that Guinness orange juice thing,
conversations. Yeah, I made it up. I literally just bought them both at the same time. I was like, let me try it together. Yeah, but in terms of obviously Sprawl,
that's the problem.
Sprawl is a cyberpunk movement shooter. So where did the whole Where did the inspiration for the themes basically come from? So did you wake up just one day and were like, you know what? I'm going to make a Cyberpunk game today. I know that you were asking around to see if anyone else was doing it, but why that particular genre?
I felt like at the time, and I'm sure Carlos will agree, because we both, like I said, the games we were making were both vibes aligned. Was that at the time, like Cyberpunk 2077 was blowing up, and the Cyberpunk genre was getting its resurgence, and I've always been a big fan of the genre. And I played through Cyberpunk. I just finished the Phantom Liberty actually, like the other week or whatever. Awesome game. It's just not the vibe. It's not what I know Cyberpunk for, right? It's like a futuristic, like, look at, like, you know, the consumerism and all that stuff. It's kind of probably like the realistic take on what Cyberpunk kind of is going to. It's what society's actually going towards, which is depressing. But what my vision for the genre is that kind of like bleaker, kind of Eastern interpretation of Cyberpunk. A lot of it is incredibly vibes based. I mean, even things like Mirror's Edge play into it, right? Like Mirror's Edge is not considered like a traditionally Cyberpunk game, but the vibe is incredibly Cyberpunk, if that makes sense. Like the general feeling of the universe that you're in really aligns with something like Ghost in the Shell, despite like aesthetically not. So it was very much that kind of guiding beacon was, you know, the interpretation of Cyberpunk from like Ghost in the Shell, or even like William Gibson's like Sprawl trilogy.
I was going to say that the Sprawl, it comes from Gibson,
like,
right?
Obviously, that's where the name comes from, but just that kind of more grim, kind of the grittier elements of Cyberpunk 2077, you know, like the net running and some of the bleaker aspects of it. But that was kind of like what I had in my head with it all, and I think that was what kind of I've always enjoyed the genre, and that's what got me to step in and decide what I wanted to do with it, and that's where that demo came, and then I think Carlos had a very similar kind of thought process.
I mean, initially, like, I mean, I've like for the most part, I'm very, very, like, if there's one thing that I am very strict on is the energy, the feeling, and you know, the aesthetics of whatever we're doing. Like Hannah's very much in charge of all the engineering, and I'm very much in charge of the big picture of what this world looks like, what it feels like, and for the most part, it works very well because we both agree with what that ultimate feeling should be. But I mean, I have been a fan of Cyberpunk my entire life in general as a genre. It's something that I was very passionately into. I built a music album around it in 2014, but I was always very clear with people that, and I've done interviews about this previously, like what is it about Sprawl that makes it stand out against like a lot of the other things in the genre? It's because we like I differentiated that with Hannah when we were first talking about it. It's like the difference between Cyberpunk 2077 and Ghost in the Shell, and the things that we enjoy, the grittiness and the lived-in feel, is the fact that these are Eastern interpretations of the genre. When Cyberpunk as a genre started with William Gibson, it was just the book. It was Neuromancer, and the best you had was his interpretation of, or people's interpretation of his word, right? And from there, you spawn Blade Runner, which, funny enough, was serendipitously being done at the same time, if I remember correctly. Like Gibson went to go see Blade Runner while he was still writing Neuromancer, and he was like, "Fuck, they beat me to it." And that was like, you know, the beginnings of that genre, and that interpretation, that Western interpretation, like, you know, the bunch of neon lights, the rainy city with like very high tech, low life, like energy that is very much in line with like the 80s retro future, right? So Cyberpunk 2077 is very 80s aligned, you know, and a lot of the Cyberpunk that comes out, like Turbo Overkill, and like, again, like, this is not me disparaging it, it's just like that vibe, that that aesthetic is not for me. That Western interpretation of Cyberpunk that is very neon lights and synthwave, like Perturbator, and, you know, like the lineage of 80s pre and post industrial music that was very like poppy, synthy shit. Like I get it, you know, like, and I do enjoy it, but it's just not what drives me. And I was always very clear that, like, when I was exploring and creating the world of Sprawl, that it had to be the Eastern interpretation of Cyberpunk. It had to be Ghost in the Shell. Not even so much Akira. It had to be straight Ghost in the Shell from 1995. Very specifically, that was, I think, the most wonderful and accurate representation of the future that we're going to get, as far as like how lived in that world is.
Yeah.
It's they went to Hong Kong and they built the world of Ghost in the Shell around that city because they felt that the disparity between such beautiful new high-rise buildings and all this crazy excess of capitalism, subject like juxtaposed with these slum apartment complexes like the Kowloon Walled City, that you had 1 million people in like 2 or 3 square miles, some shit like that. It's baffling. The most dense place on earth, and
that's the more realistic depiction of that genre, that potential future, than it is the fever dream like 80s interpretation, like something like Cyberpunk.
Exactly.
It's odd because Blade Runner is actually a historical film now because it's set back 5 years ago in 2019.
Yeah.
And even Ridley Scott, he was like, if you go to Shanghai, it's Blade Runner now.
Mm-hmm.
It's those things are coming to pass. Cyber City 808 is another brilliant
really great
anime as well. Really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Really great. So yeah, I mean, Sprawl, the aesthetic of Sprawl, and what we were going for as far as the kind of cyberpunk we wanted to do was very much 90s anime Eastern interpretations of the genre, and things adjacent to it like Blame and a lot of other media that I grew up watching and fell in love with. And I was very clear, like, this is what we're going to build Sprawl around. And I don't think any other game has really done that, because for whatever reason, the people that are in charge of them creatively were the people that grew up with Blade Runner instead of the people that grew up with Ghost in the Shell 10 years later.
Right.
Now I can predict quite easily that we're going to see a lot of those creative directors that are around my age or a little bit older than me that grew up with that movie are going to come into play, and they're going to start influencing. We're going to see a lot of shit that looks like that.
Nice. Speaking of Turbo Overkill, we are coming close to the end of our session here today, but I do have one question that we've started putting to our guests on here, and that is that for guests on the future devs, if you were to ask them a question and we would put that question to them. And oddly enough, next week we have the dev from Turbo Overkill, Diluvian Ultra, and Cultic all on together in a six-person podcast. Yeah, so it's kind of a roundtable, we call it. So, a question for both of you: if you had a question to put to them, what question would it be?
I don't even have a question to put to them. I think that's a great crew of people that you have, and I would love for you if you could pass this along from my side, that they are radically awesome and the best thing in the industry right now, because it's singular creative visions that are fulfilling basically just their desire to make that world, right?
Yeah.
Their world, and they brought it to life, and that is a really difficult thing to do, and all those games are brilliant aesthetically and just from the way they feel. Turbo Overkill is a fucking masterwork. It's insane that the one person
it is. Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy, and my hat's off to you. And just send them all my love and my appreciation, because they've made some really great stuff.
Yeah, definitely will put to them. Yeah. Hannah, anything from your side? Ask them about British food.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, no. What is their opinion on British cuisine?
I'm literally noting it down.
No, I guess I'd like to know what their core inspirations were and how they feel, what they feel the core differences between Sprawl and what they were doing is what were the conscious decisions in terms of the direction they took that they thought diverged from our project, and what do they plan on doing in the future? Do they plan on sticking, going down the cyberpunk route, or are they kind of leaning towards different directions with that? How are they doing their own take and evolving on the cyberpunk thing and their own thing? Because we have our opinions about the directions we're going. I'm really curious to hear other devs' opinion about where they got their cyberpunk inspirations from, and what they want to lean into consciously now.
Okay. I'm noting it.
Yeah, that was a very random. I was like, I knew what the question was, but I didn't know how to word it, so it came out as a lot of word soup, and then I came around to an actual question, which is the what is your cyberpunk influences, and what are your what direction are you consciously trying to take your next project, or what if you're not now doing that yet, what were you trying to do with Turbo Overkill in terms of pushing that envelope?
That is a hell of a game. I think Sprawl and Turbo Overkill are probably two of the best movement shooters that I've personally played.
Thank you.
When you spend as much time in the air as you do on the ground, then you're playing a decent movement shooter. Yeah. But there was one more thing that
Wall running, bullet time. You gotta love it.
One. Yeah.
All the classics.
Did you call it? Is it called bullet time in Sprawl?
Called adrenaline.
Yeah, adrenaline.
Yeah, I knew something was wrong when I was saying it,
something
but
like that.
I wasn't.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We call it bullet time internally too. It's in the fucking. I think I call it bullet time in a few places in the tutorial. It's fine. It's the same thing. You know what it means.
Yeah.
The code calls it all which ways. I think it's stored inside of the character as adrenaline, but then all the other variables are like bullet time, drain rate, and stuff like that. It's interchangeable. Yeah.
You know what we're talking about.
I've got a question for you guys, actually. If you could change one aspect of Sprawl, what would it be?
That's great.
Oh, only one thing. So either like the way the wall jumping works.
Yeah, you've been glazing us enough. You've been glazing us enough. Tell us what you didn't like and what we can do better.
I don't know. I'm gonna let the guys go first on this one because I would struggle with that question because I have already expressed that I really do enjoy the game.
I'll put it to you, Robert, since you're probably the one who's dug the most into it. I think they're looking more for like something to soundboard off of more so than to critique or to kiss ass. Just like if there's anything that, and it could not even be like, oh, I wish this was not here. It could be like, I wish there was more of this too.
Yeah.
To answer that,
what would you change about the overall product?
What would I change? The world building. I would want more of it. It's the problem with an introductory game in anything. I don't know if you'll ever do a sequel to Sprawl, but the problem with anyone is any first game, you're very limited in the scope of what it is that you're able to present. And when you create a world that is very interesting, Cyberpunk being one of my favorite genres as well, there's always a hunger that's left over once you finish the game that you're like, I want more. Not just more of the game, but more world building. In terms of what are the politics of that world? How does the economy work? That sort of thing. So this sort of thing is what I personally would like to have seen more of in terms of from Sprawl. From a gameplay perspective, I can't fault the game. From a design perspective, I can't fault the game. It's really about that. But I've always been very much a fan of things like Lord of the Rings, Dune, that have very large and deep, very in-depth ecosystems, in terms of its world. And I think Doom is going that way as well. You're talking about thousands of years. I know the famous quote from Carmack is they don't need storylines, but that's
video games were. Yeah, video games are like a porno. They don't need a story.
Exactly.
The amount of fights I've gotten into because John Carmack said this. It's like, do not listen to fucking John Carmack. He's a good engineer, but he does not understand a goddamn thing about vibes. That's not the guy you go to. Like, why the fuck am I going to talk to the chef about how to architect my house? It makes no goddamn sense. He could be a really great chef. What the fuck does he know about architecture?
To be fair, he was always the technical genius. He was always pushing the boundary.
Let it be the technical one. I mean, Just to follow up on what you were saying, I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Like, I have read everything. At one point, I could speak fucking Elvish. I love that world. I love deep worlds in general, and so Sprawl, I fought very hard to get those lore entries in at the very end because I wrote them all. There's hundreds of pages of just how this world happened and everything. And there's a long-term plan and vision to how this narrative is set up. And hopefully it all plays out how I have it in my head. But this is some fucking big brain thinking, you know, like
these are the NFC things. Is it NFC? You know, where you scan it with your phone. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I thought that was a very unique idea.
No, that was it was that or nothing. It was that or nothing because we just could not get that feature in before the game shipped. So it wasn't like, and that's the thing that always sucks about game development is that you make these sacrifices knowing that they're not the best solution, but it's that or nothing, and you ship with them, and then people complain about them because obviously they're not ideal. It's like, yeah, trust me, I know that. Like,
right.
It was unique, sure, but that was always supposed to be a layer of Easter egg on top of having an in-game codex with all the lore entries, which is how it is now in Sprawl. You can read all of them internal, like they all get collected. You go in the codex menu, you can read all of them. Yeah. And they're very much like from the design point, they're like the terminals from Marathon, which is a big inspiration for me. And I love how the world of Marathon was presented. How you inhabit it and things are happening to you, but you're not driving them necessarily, right? You're just think the difference between how a lot of narratives happen in other games where it's like you are the driving factor, you are him, you know. Whereas in Bungie games, you are the driving actor, you're him, but like you're also not in control of anything. You're just a fucking puppet for something even bigger, right?
Yeah.
Which is what very much Sprawl is, and that narrative is, and so it's all presented, and you kind of have to like put the pieces together. And there's a few people like that have really looked into the lore and read all the lore entries and made the connections and found all the Easter eggs and like have finally started to put together the big picture. And I see them doing that. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. And just you wait, because there's going to be more to that story.
This is what I want to see. I want to see more of it. I have a saying that if a bad game feels like you've played it, but a good game feels like you've lived it, because it feels like you've been on the journey of the experience of discovering what things are. Yeah. But Deadforge, just what?
Yeah, I mean, you touched story and stuff like that. And there's not anything that I dislike about the game, but I think even more verticality would be something. Like even more things to wall run on, even more things to bounce off of, and just climb higher and higher. Just more verticality would add like an interesting element, I feel like, to that kind of gameplay.
You'll end up with aerial combat then.
Yeah.
Because you're 200 foot in the air.
Hey, I mean,
I think Matt, the guy that made Severed Steel, he's working on Echo Point Nova.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's
I helped a little bit on that game.
Oh, okay.
I did some stuff for that game. Yeah, Matt's an awesome guy. I could definitely play Echo Point Nova. Amazing game. Again, another person who I really respect because they're able to just say, I don't care about anything besides how the game feels.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. And thanks so much to y'all for joining us. That was honestly one of my favorite conversations I think we've had. And I appreciate asking us to kind of account for our taste at the very end. I feel like I wish more people were accepting of like, but now that we're in the trenches together, what can we trade on that front? Yeah, I really appreciate that mindset. So that's pretty cool. A lot of respect there for that. But as far as, Sprawl from here on out, where can we find y'all to keep up with what y'all got worked on?
Sprawl FPS everywhere, Twitter, YouTube. You can just follow us there. You can join our Discord. We're fairly active. And basically, if you ever want to reach out to me or Hannah, well, mostly me. Hannah sucks at this, but you can talk to me and I'll get back to you. For good reason. You're out living life now. This is a fucking compliment.
Yeah.
Like I'm fucking stoked. Like I found you and you didn't do shit, and now you're actually going to raves, you're having fun.
Yeah, when we met, he was a DJ, he was out raving, he was going to festivals all this time. I was the shut-in nerd. Like, now Sprawl came out, I bought myself a motorcycle, I'm going to raves, I'm doing all this shit, I'm just never in anymore. Oh, yeah. So he's like, hey, hop on the computer. I'm like, no, go away, nerd.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, I have been telling her for 3 years that she needs to live some life, and so I'm happy that she's doing it. I think everyone needs to live some life. That's the whole reason we're here. Anyways, to get back to what we're saying, Sprawl FPS, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere, follow us, get on our Discord, and if you ever want to talk to me about anything, I am an open book. I will literally send you anything you want, talk about anything you want. I'm always available. I'll always make time.
Right on.
Awesome.
Now, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm at EmberDev on everything again. So EMBYRDEV. I go through phases of being active and not so active, as Carlos said. So as whenever we're working on something actively and we've got our heads down, usually I'm available and active. And yeah, but for the most part, yeah, the Sprawl FPS Twitter account will be where you can find updates on our games, and our Discord's always an awesome place. We've got some really dedicated fans there who will who engage really well with the game, and Carlos is always open to have a discussion. If you start a discussion, like I do like the community we have where people do come in and ask a lot of questions. Like, Robert was touching on the world building. We have a lot of people who engage with that very deeply, specifically. And there's always like interesting conversations going on, just theory crafting and stuff like that. So if you ever want to chat to us or other people about the game or the games that we're making coming up, then our community Discord is the way to go.
Awesome.
Right. And just from my point of view too, whenever someone offers you the open book, take it, because there's so many people that will give you the most generic answers, and understandably they got their own thing going, but it's always nice to like take advantage of people who will entertain you and educate you and make you better.
I love doing that.
Just enjoy life more.
If we can make you passionate about our game, you will go and make other people passionate about our game, and then we'll sell more copies.
That works.
There we go, Hannah. There we go, Hannah. Show everyone behind that the Wizard of Oz. There we go. Fucking ruin all the magic for all the kids. You know what? Hey, Santa Claus isn't real.
Beautiful marketing.
Yeah, fuck you. Come on.
No, for real though, like
Carmacking again.
No, for real though,
go be Carmack.
We put a lot of effort into the community because the community gives back. Sprawl's built entirely on word of mouth. We make games to be played by people. Like there's a reason we're doing this and not working in banking or ghost producing for musicians or whatever. Like there's other ways we be doing that. We make games to be played, and the more people that we can, if we could take 15 minutes to create a new super fan, that will spread. That'll spread to other people. He'll tell people about it. And it's always like really heartwarming to see people get really deep into the theory crafting. And, like occasionally, like you see someone in the Discord just go off for pages and pages and pages, and just it's amazing to see that someone's like can get that engaged in something that we created in our bedrooms.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We love everyone that loves us, and even if you don't like us too much, we still love you too.
Sweet. Cool. Deadforge, have you given all your places where people can find you?
I haven't, but you can find me at the Lord of the RPG on X. You can find me at Deadforge on YouTube or Patreon, and that's pretty much that.
Yes, I like money. Patreon.
I like money. I wish I don't get any money.
That's why you did the plug at the end.
I like money too.
Yeah.
Go to the Oshri.
And anyone that's looking to follow Quad Damage, of course, can find us on 2 places. Well, technically 3. I joined Reddit a couple of days ago just to see if it would help us out. And every fucking post, keeps getting deleted because I'm new.
Reddit's pretty bad for
posts on there.
Promoting. It's good for just like talking to communities, which I think Discord's better at that as well. But it's really bad at promoting stuff and used for any kind of marketing.
Well,
it's such a toxic like
right now,
place. But yeah.
Well, it's worked for Sprawl though, so I'm hoping some of that magic is going to come our way.
It's very, very specifically the thing to keep in mind with that kind of stuff is to provide value to the people that you're pitching to.
Of course.
So if you're just trying to promote yourself, it's not like X where you can go look at my thing. That's not what you're trying to do. The only promotion, like we posted in /r/indie games, we get deleted, game dev, all this stuff, like all these different subreddits, nothing caught. Until we went to the Steam Deck subreddit, just posted a video of us playing a first-person shooter on a Steam Deck, and I'm like, "Hey, we made a game. It's optimized for Steam Deck. Here's me playing on it. Go check it out."
Find the right
I don't even know if we said it. We just and you got to provide value. Like this is that was such a difference between getting deleted for promotion versus the Steam Deck moderators reaching out to us, going, "Hey, would you like to do a pinned promotional giveaway thing?" Because we were actually.
It says on there that promotion is okay, but it cannot exceed 10% of what you do on there because they expect you to actually be engaging with people and creating, the platform on there. Then But yeah, you can find us. You can find the Quad Damage Podcast on YouTube, of course. You can find us on Twitter, and hopefully at some point in the future, you will see us on Reddit when they allow our posts to start being made available. And yeah, that's all.
Keep on booming.
Keep on booming.